Hi, welcome to SFG Cards and Craft. Today I'd like to show you how I did this card. This card is basically part 3 in the potato series, or the Rock My World potato series. First of all, I'm still doing the same colouring as what I've done on the other two cards. The first colour that I've chosen here is antique linen. That covers the whole potato. It's to give it a little bit of highlight, but not to leave its dark white in the middle. The small potato that I've got there, the little baby potato, or the tater tot if you'd like to call him that, is I only do the 3 colours on that little one. I don't do the real dark colour, which is the dark colour is gathered twig. I only put the first 3 colours on that little fella. Coming in now with the second colour, this is the rusty hinge. So the first colour was antique linen, second colour rusty hinge. The third colour is brushed corduroy, and the fourth colour gathered twig, which, as I said, only goes on the 2 bigger ones. This part of it is all the same as the other 2 potatoes videos that I've actually done, so if you wanted to skip forward, you're quite welcome to. We'll probably go through to about 2.5 minutes. You'll probably miss all this, I think. Not really sure what to talk about here. Actually, there's really not much I can say. I mean, this is, as I said, this is just part 3. I had planned on doing this earlier, but I still haven't received them. I've been waiting for some tiny little joggle eyes to come in. I ordered them end of March, and they still haven't come in, and now it is beginning of June, and they were supposed to have been in like a month ago, and they still haven't arrived. And I've been talking with the supplier, and he's supposed to be sending me more, but I couldn't wait any longer. The eyes that I've put on the little guy are about 4.5 millimeters, but I've ordered some 3 millimeter ones, and they still haven't arrived. But maybe one day I'll get them. But anyway, this is why I thought of this. This is why this one has taken so long to get done, the third part. Now there's the. I'm just putting a little bit more of the. That's the brushed corduroy. A little bit more in the little baby potato, and just doing a bit of a clean up. You'll also possibly notice later on that the second to biggest one, the one which I'm calling the Mrs. Potato, actually changes. I thought it was a little bit too dark there. It's probably not quite showing as dark on the video now, seeing it, as what it was in person, but I thought it was a little bit too dark, so I actually redid the whole potato off screen. I didn't show that on screen. So it's sometime after this that I actually changed the potato. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just thickening the potato up by putting a second backing on it, like a extra watercolour paper on the back, which is actually just a cheap watercolour paper, just a thicker one. I think it's a 300 grams paper. But it's just an Elle cheapo one. You can't use it for watercolour. It's like a blotter. It's just so cheap. It's nasty. It's nasty stuff. Now with the little potato, I actually cut that one from a lawn fawn die, Cookies and Milk, or Milk and Cookies. I can't remember. It's actually the cookie cut. So that's where that one came from. This is for the eyes. Now I'm putting the eyes, as in the potato eyes, which is the rusty hinge, and get a very tiny dot with the ground espresso. So first of all I put like a little curved line, or straight line, whatever, with the rusty hinge, and then after that's dried, which I think I dry that with the dryer, I come in with a dot of ground espresso. Yes, I'm drying them after I've put the line on, because if I don't, the ground espresso, if it's still wet, will actually just spread along the whole rusty hinge line, and I didn't want that. I just wanted that tiny little dark dot in there. So that's what's happening there at the moment, just putting the eyes in. I had to actually get the potatoes to the stage of sticking the eyes on, so I could put them aside to finish the rest of it, because they actually take quite a while to dry, because it's plastic backed on the eye, and so therefore it doesn't absorb into that. It dries very quickly, but this is the Ranger medium matte glue. It dries very quickly when you're wedging it between 2 pieces of paper, but when you put plastic and paper, it takes a lot longer to dry. Same as if you're putting it on the fun foam and paper, or between two sheets of fun foam. That will take a very long time to dry because it doesn't absorb. Now all I'm doing here is coming around just the edges of the two bigger ones with a layer of I think that's gathered twig, or it could have been the ground espresso. I really don't remember. I think gathered twig, just because I've actually put the that extra backing on, is just to get rid of that white colour around there so you can't see the white colour. Now because this one is actually like a colder weather type scene, I wouldn't say exactly winter, at least not a winter as in a snow scene, because in Australia here, most places in Australia, unless you're actually in the mountains, we don't actually have snow. We have cold enough days, frosts and that sort of thing, but we don't actually have snow where I am. So I thought I'll just put hats on them, make it look like a wintry scene. I mean, after all, they got married in the springtime, and now in the wintertime they're having a baby, so very quick. So that the father one, I've actually done his hat there, and that's done with Blueprint Sketch. The little baby one, I'm actually doing that one with, where is it? I'm sorry, I'm just reading it off here. Oh, I didn't write it in. Oh, yes, I did. Hats, baby, broken china. It's for the baby. Now, because that hat, it's actually this. Oh, sorry, this hat set I didn't explain. This hat set's actually from a paper Smooches. It's just called hats. It's just a die set that I got. There is no stamp set that came with it or anything. I'm not even sure if there is a stamp set that matches it. So I've only got the die set. I bought it just recently. It was just one of those spur of the moment things. I thought, oh, gee, that's cheap. I'll get that. I might need a hat one day. Well, here we are, and only a few days later I'm using it. But that little hat there, the smallest one that's in the set, I thought it was just far too big for the little baby, so I've cut it down. But even though the original size of it has like a little fold up rim thing that comes with it, like the other two. You see there I've got two pieces for each, the pink one and the blue one, or three for the pink one because it's got a pom-pom on top. And so to make the fold, I've actually cut the bottom off the hat. You'll see what I've done here. I didn't actually show doing it. I didn't want to make the video too long, and then I've just glued it back on and then cut it off afterwards. So that's all I've done. Just put a little rim around the hat. You'll see it when the card comes up anyway. You'll see the little rim. And this is just gluing the eyes on. Now the male one, I've chosen 3 different colours. The male one I think are about 9 or 9.5 millimeters. The mother is about 8, I'd say, maybe 7.5 to 8, and the little baby one, they're about 4.5 millimeters. But as you know, I was hoping to get the 3mm ones, but they just did not arrive. And I'm hoping still that I will get them. I've had to get the supplier to resend them, so I haven't heard if he has yet, but we'll find out, I suppose, maybe by the end of June. If they have been resent, they might have them by then. Now, because this is like a wintry type scene, I've decided that the sky is not going to be a nice bright blue. I'm using stormy skies here. This is the first time I've actually done a background card with stormy skies, and I quite like it. I think I might actually use it another time. It does look quite good. It would be quite good for like a late evening before the sun starts to go down too much, like before you get that yellowy orangey glow in the sky. It would be quite a good one for that, or for any cloudy day really. But no, it does look quite good, and against the grass it looks really good. I'm looking at the card here now as I'm talking. So I go down about 3/4 of the way down, or 2/3 of the way, and then I do the grass. I've got 2 pieces of grass. This grass is cut from Lawn Fawn's hillside borders. This is 2 different cuts of the 4 dies that are in that set. It's quite a big set. It's got 4 pieces of grass, different shapes in it. And the colours that I'm using for the grass is, the first colour was crushed olive, and the second colour I'm coming in with peeled paint. So this is bringing in the peeled paint now. I've tried to cut this video down as much as I can without actually losing too much of the information that's required. And of course then I bend the paper, don't I? But that doesn't matter. This one's going underneath anyway, so that's not really going to be noticed. Not really trying to necessarily get them smooth, but anyway. Oh, and the clouds. The 2 little clouds, because it is a sort of a rainy, sort of a wintry day, I've done the hickory smoke around the clouds. The little tiny cloud, that one came from a set cross-cut, something weather, can't even remember, it's weather something. I will write that down into the, if anyone's interested. It actually is a tiny little set, and it has this little cloud. It has a tiny little sun. It has little raindrops, really tiny little raindrops. I can't remember what else it has with it. A lightning bolt, I think. and possibly a couple of other things. But it's by cross cut, I think it is. I will put that down into the description down below if anyone is interested. But there again, that was only a really cheap set. I think I only paid like $4 for it, and for Australia standards, $4 for a die set is really cheap. Might have even been less than $4. And that was probably the reason I got it, was for this little cloud and the sun. I haven't actually used the sun yet. Haven't had the need for a tiny little sun yet. The sun itself is probably less than a 1 cent piece size, which is probably about no more than about a centimetre. The glue I'm using, the wet glue, that's Ranger Multi-Medium Matte. I think I got that right way around this time. Yeah, putting the two of those down. The frame that I put around is cut from the Mama Elephant. Just trying to find it on my list here. Oh, sorry, I've got the die in front of me here. Mama Elephant's Framed Tag Park Avenue. That's what that one is. The sentiment came from Whimsy's Baby Animal stamp set, which is probably the only baby stamp set that I've actually got, I think, is the Whimsy Baby Animal. So I quite often use the same stamp to the Happy Parents in it. And this is the frame, the one from the Mama Elephant Framed Tags Park Avenue, that one's called. There is another frame that's very similar to this one, but the scallop is actually on the outside, but I haven't got that one. I would like to get that one too one day. But of course here in Australia, dies and stamps and everything like that are very expensive, and I have to pay for every one of mine. I don't get anything for free, which would be nice if I could actually get recognised by one of these big companies, and maybe one day, probably not in my lifetime, but maybe one day. So I'd be surprised anyway. Now the tape that I'm using, that's just a cheap roll of tape that I actually bought. The tape is fine, it's just that backing, you cannot tear it by hand, you have to use scissors to cut it every time. It's a plastic back, and it's very tough, very hard. In fact, the tape itself, if you try tearing it, it does stretch a lot before it actually tears, so it's not really a good one to tear. You can't exactly tear it, it stretches and pulls. But these plastic backing that's on there, it's very staticky sometimes. Maybe today wasn't so bad, perhaps because I sat it on top of the plastic sheet that's there, and maybe that's why it didn't stick to my hand, but usually it just sticks to my hand. The one I used on the little baby potato is another roll of the same manufacturer, but it's a white one with a paper backing on it, and that one does tear a bit easier, but I never do tear it, I just cut it. And that one's actually about double the thickness of the green one. The green one's actually less than 1 millimetre, and the other one is I think it's about 1.5 millimeters. I'm not quite sure, but that's about what it is, I think. And that's almost the panel, almost the card done, or the panel I should say. Now just putting the clouds on. This is the tiny little cloud. That's from that cross-cut die set that I was telling you about before. And of course the Ranger glue that I'm using. As you can see, I've only actually coloured half of it because I'm going to overlap the other half with the bigger cloud. Now I was going to glue the bigger cloud down, but as you can see I cut something out there because I started to sort of lie it down there to see where it would go, and I thought, nah, I'll raise this one up. I'll put the thin tape on it like I did with the two big potatoes. So that's what I've done there, but I had to cut a little bit of it away because where I overlap it, I just needed it to sit properly. And so I can actually cover up the bit of the cloud that wasn't actually coloured. And just taking the backing off. This backing is, as I said, is because it's static, it's very hard to get off. It's you might get the corner up and then it'll slip and it'll just plonk straight back down again. It's really difficult to get up. Tweezers is much better. I should have used the tweezers, but never mind, it's too late now, it's all done. And the eyebrows, because they're now new parents, they've got worried eyebrows, both of them this time. On the first card that I did, the Valentine's card, there was only the Mr. Potato was only the one on there, and he had worried eyebrows. The bridal card, he had worried eyes, but she had fluttering eyes. She was all happy. But now they're both worried. And the Spectrum Noir clear glitter for the clouds. I have to have a bit of glitter in my cards. I try and put it on most cards. And there's the final panel, all finished. So if you like this, please subscribe and hit the like box. And thank you for watching. Bye bye. Oh, and I'll be back soon. Bye bye.